On April 24th, as Booth and Harold reached the Rappahannock River, they encountered William Jett, a former rebel soldier. A former rebel soldier with the 9th Virginia Cavalry. He led the men to the farm of Richard Garrett and left them there. It's April 24th, 1865. The Garrett farm, April 24th, 1865. He's going to die in 2 days. John Wilkes Booth is. The Garrett farm was in a rural area, and with the collapse of the Confederate postal system, it was cut off for most of the news. As such, the Garretts were unaware that Lincoln had even been assassinated. Booth was introduced to them as James W. Boyd, a wounded Confederate soldier returning home. That day in Washington, D.C., a detachment of 26 Union soldiers from the 16th New York Cavalry Regiment steamed down the Potomac River. They were commanded by Lieutenant Edward P. Doherty. With him was Lieutenant Colonel Everton Conger, an intelligence officer. Everton Conger. They were pursuing leads that Booth was in the area. The soldiers landed that night at Belle Plaine, Virginia. Everton Conger tracked down William Jett. When interrogated, William Jett gave up Booth and Harold. The noose around Booth's neck was tightening. The soldiers rode through the night, reached the Garrett farm before dawn. Booth and Harold were hiding in the Garrett's tobacco barn after the troops surrounded the building. Lieutenant Colonel Everton Conger came forward. John Wilkes Booth and David Harold, you're surrounded by soldiers of the United States Army. Come out of the barn and surrender yourselves. David Harold peeked out at the soldiers. Their situation was hopeless. He whispered to Booth, "He ain't lying. There's a mess of blue coat soldiers out there. I reckon we're at the end of our road. Surrender if you like, Dave. I'm not going. Good luck, John." He moved cautiously to the door and shouted, "Okay, I'm coming out." So David Harold is going to surrender, but he's going to get hung a month later. So it really didn't really help him. I guess it gave him a month of life. David Harold opened the door a few inches and tossed his pistol out onto the dirt, and he walked out with his hands on his head. 2 troopers quickly grabbed him, pulled his hands behind his back, and dragged him away from the barn. Everton Conger's men hustled the man away from the tobacco shed. It wasn't Booth. Conger had actually watched him perform on stage. April 24th, I thought it was 26. Conger would have recognized him. "Okay, Booth, it's your turn. Throw out your weapon. Come out with your hands high." Booth laughed. "I prefer to come out and fight." Conger turned to the troopers. "Secretary Stanton wants him alive. No one shoots him. Set a match to the barn. He'll come out." One of the soldiers took a kerosene lamp from the Garrett's porch, lit it, and tossed it onto the barn. Flames slowly spread up the side of the building as the kerosene leaked out on the other side of the barn. Another trooper with a torch fired the bottom of the opposite wall. The old dry wood caught quickly and the barn was soon engulfed. Inside, John Wilkes Booth choked on the thick smoke but stubbornly refused to leave between the rough cut boards of the barn. The soldiers saw John Wilkes Booth moving around. Inside, a couple of troopers moved closer just before a shot rang out. A Union soldier, Sergeant Boston Corbett, shot Booth in the neck. Booth collapsed and the soldiers rushed in to drag the wounded man from the burning building. Conger was furious. "God damn it, who fired that shot? I said he was to be taken alive." Boston Corbett sheepishly stepped forward. "It was me, Colonel." He raised his pistol and was about to shoot. Conger turned to Lieutenant Doherty. "Get this son of a bitch out of my sight." The soldiers dragged Booth across to the Garrett's porch. Corbett's bullet broke 3 of Booth's vertebrae and severed his spine. John Wilkes Booth was alive, but paralyzed. Conger was afraid to move him, so they left him on the porch while the medics worked on him. It was to no avail. He was dying some 3 hours later as the end neared. He told one of his captors, "Tell my mother I died for my country." He then asked to have his hands lifted up in front of his face. Staring at them, he said, "Useless, useless." He died just as dawn was breaking on April 26, 1865. April 26, 1865. They searched his body and they found a compass and a diary, pictures of 5 different women, a candle. On the same day that John Wilkes Booth died in North Carolina, General Joe Johnston surrendered the last significant Confederate fighting force, the 86,000 men of the Army of the Tennessee, to Union General William Tecumseh Sherman. 86,000, damn! The American Civil War was over. John Wilkes Booth's last-ditch effort to save the South had failed completely. All the conspirators, with the notable exception of John Surt Jr., had been captured. They were tried by military tribunal and convicted. David, Harold, Lewis Powell, George Atzerodt, Mary Surratt were all hung. Surratt was the first woman ever hung by the U.S. government. Michael O'Laughlin, Samuel Arnold, and Dr. Samuel Mudd were sentenced to life in prison. Edmund Spangler, the man Booth asked to hold his horse, was given a 6-year prison term. O'Laughlin died in prison of yellow fever. The other surviving conspirators were eventually pardoned by Andrew Johnson in 1869. What? What? Why would he do that? Why would he do that? Then the aftermath. The plots by Booth and his co-conspirators are intended to help the South. Lincoln did have a moderate approach. Lincoln pretty much kissed the Confederates' ass after we won the war. He said they're our brothers now, and he says just 10%, just sign an oath of allegiance. That's it. Just 10% of the people sign an oath of allegiance, and you get to become, be a part of America again. Pretty moderate, pretty smart choice. And then goddamn Andrew Johnson is going to make it even worse. But what can you say? What can you say, huh? What's the Bible say? Justice. So both the preamble of Constitution of the Constitutions of Colorado and America says that the point of the American government, the point of the Colorado government, is to establish justice. It's also to promote the domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, to form a more perfect union, to form a more perfect government. The Bible says, Proverbs 11:19 says that justice leads towards life, wickedness towards death. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous and terror for the wicked. So whenever justice is done, the evil people, they don't like it. The righteous people love it. That's 21:15. The fool, a man of understanding gains wisdom, but the fool, he's entertained by crime. Proverbs 10:23. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous and terror to the wicked. Follow justice and justice alone. Deuteronomy. The wise store up knowledge. So that's Solomon, right? Proverbs. Come out of the gate like a man possessed. God ordered. Walk into the room like God ordered you to. Go in there and kick ass and take names. You got to know you get to. You're supposed to lead from the front. You got to be your best. You got to be your best. If you're not doing the best you that you could be, you're not just depriving yourself. You're depriving the entire world. We need you to be the best. We need all of y'all to be the best that you could possibly be. Be all you can be in the army. Turn your pain into power. Convert your pain into power. When you break, that's not the end. That's just the beginning. Abraham Lincoln said that he became president. He became a successful lawyer and senator and president because a fellow believed in him, and that was it. A fellow believed in Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln just didn't have the heart to let that feller down. He was just too good of an honest, pure man to let that good, honest, pure feller down. You like me? You actually think I could do this? I do, Mr. Lincoln. I do, Mr. Lincoln. I think you can. I think you could do a great job, Mr. Lincoln. Time the Golgi tendon, electromagnetism, itch, dizzy, dream, rotation, vibration, smell, taste, hearing, distance, eyesight, organ, stretch, pain, lanceolate, hunger, oxygen intake, thirst, fatigue, vestibular, coldness, texture, grip, strength, direction, Merkel cells, air pressure. Let's just read a paragraph of The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. Ah, here we are, he said. He awkwardly made further investigations. Just as I thought, he added presently. You've been grazed by a ball. It's raised a queer lump, just as if some feller had lammed ya on the head with a club. It stopped the bleeding a long time ago. The most about it is that in the morning you'll feel that a number 10 hat wouldn't fit you, and your head'll be all a head up and feel as dry as burnt pork. And you may get a lot of other sicknesses too by morning. You can never tell. Still, I don't much think so. It's just a damn good belt on the head and nothing more. Now, you just sit there and don't move while I go rout out the relief. Then I'll send Wilson to take care of you. The corporal went away. The youth remained on the ground like a parcel. He stared with a vacant look into the fire. After a time, he aroused for some part, and the things about him began to take form. He saw that the ground and the deep shadows were cluttered with men, sprawling in every conceivable posture. Glancing narrowly into the more distant darkness, he caught occasional glimpses of visages that loomed pallid and ghostly, lit with a phosphorescent glow. These faces expressed in their lines the deep stupor of the tired soldiers. They made them appear like men drunk with wine. This bit of forest might have appeared to an ethereal wanderer as a scene of the result of some frightful debauch. On the other side of the fire, the youth observed an officer asleep, seated bolt upright with his back against a tree. There was something perilous in his position, badgered by dreams. Perhaps he swayed with the little bounces and starts like an old toddy-stricken grandfather in the chimney corner. Dust and stains were upon his face. His lower jaw hung down as if lacking strength to assume its normal position. He was the picture of an exhausted soldier after a feast of war. So there's some Stephen Crane for you. They say if you had to go to the hospital in the Civil War, you're a goner. I gotta go to the hospital. Oh shit, he's a goner. There was somebody saying that instead of looking at American society and wanting to increase the militarism and thinking that the police station is in the center of American society, what if we put the hospital? If we put the hospital at the center of American society, so that way gun victims, they go to the hospital first and get taken care of and patched up. And if we think of the hospital as the center point, then we're thinking of the healing, and we're thinking of the medicine, and we're thinking of the you know how it is. You got two phones, you're going to be really real like Kevin Gates.